media. Is there anyone present who's planning to record? All right, that takes care of that. Consent agenda. Entertain a motion to approve the regular school committee minutes of December 19th.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve the minutes of regular school committee meeting December 19th, 2017.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, any questions or corrections? Hearing none, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye. Any abstention or negative vote? Seeing none, it was unanimous. Okay, is there anyone from the public that would like to address us at this time? Okay. It's gonna be quick, Sal, you're all set.
Thank you.
Don't jinx us.
Oh, wait,
Oh,
hold on.
no, we're all set.
Got a hand up.
Too late.
Under agenda item 1. Under agenda item 1.
Yeah, okay. Student reps.
Okay, hello. Last week, because of the snow days, the reverse college day was rescheduled. I don't think there's a date for it yet, but it'll be coming soon. Also, Chelmsford High School was recognized for the 8th annual AP Honor Roll because of the wide variety and number of courses that they offer, as well as how the courses are accessible to many different kids and the scores are always improving. We also are moving finals back 2 days because of the snow days, and we're moving term grade postings back 2 days.
So Thomas Jefferson Forum is doing an aqua run to raise money for those without water, which is going to be May 26th at the high school. Saturday 18th to the 20th is the children's play. Next Top Teacher will take place February 2nd, and Lecture Hall 1 should be done by the end of the month.
Okay. Before we move on, I'd just like to, there was a meeting the other night where it was pointed out that the reality check classroom, which goes to Shriners Hospital in Boston every year, raised over $2,000. And the interesting thing, in the past, they've just been able to make a general donation, but they asked that it be given specifically for headsets. It might seem strange, but the people are really painful, and it's a really a good way of helping them get through those tough times. And every time the kids come back from Shriners Institute, anybody that goes there is really impressed. Along that same line, the resiliency class raised collected toys for one of the local hospitals and get where it went to. And the faculty holiday party raised over $1,200 for the Santa Fund. The reason I bring these things up whenever I can is that I've always claimed that the high school is one of the, if not the major charitable organization in town, certainly one of them, and the work that the kids do, and it goes on at all the levels. I just become usually more aware of it at the high school. But I think our kids are just great in that they continue to take on these kinds of things. All right, good news?
Yep, we have a couple of pieces of good news. So every year, our Chelmsford 8th graders, they participate in a program called Project 351. This is a youth-driven organization for leadership where they bring together the 8th graders in the 351 cities and towns in Chelmsford. So every year we have a representative from Chelmsford coming to be part of this whole project. And this year it's Parker Middle School student Georgia Schick. She's already had a chance to meet with the governor. They've done their whole reception piece, and she's really looking forward to this opportunity, and we'll get some more information as she goes through that process. Also, this week, Dr. Lang and I had the opportunity to go over to UMass Lowell to be judges for the DECA competition. That's our Distributive Education Clubs of America. So teams of 2 students would come up and they would do their pitch, whether it was in marketing, hospitality, finance, management, and we were able to be part of that group, so that was really fun. And we saw our kids. They looked like they were enjoying themselves. We didn't judge them, but we saw them having a good time. And then just to give you a preview, the international teachers will be coming to Chelmsford this month. There's a few receptions that will be happening at UMass Lowell and here for receptions, and then we're going to look forward to reporting out and then bringing them back to the committee.
Okay, thank you. At this time, I'd like to invite you all to join me in a moment of silence. I'm aware that we lost 2 teachers from the district. One was still employed, and the other was with us for a long time. First is Kathy Fahey, who is one of our elementary teachers, and the other is Meg Conant, who was in the business department for a long time at the high school. So if you join me in a moment of silence, I appreciate it. Thank you very much. New business.
Sure. The first item on the agenda this evening we indicated we'd do it at the two January meetings leading up to the school committee's discussion and deliberations on the budget in February. But the first item is just a public input item on the agenda for anyone that would like to come forward and discuss anything related to the fiscal 2019 budget that we're going to begin to address in February. Again, this item will appear on tonight's agenda as well as next Tuesday, just to give public an opportunity to come and express any ideas or thoughts that they may have before we begin the process.
Mike Rigney, 19 Billrica Road. Good evening. It's nice to see you all again. It's even nicer to see you from this side of the table.
On that side of the table.
I have a lot of recommendations for you. Talking about the budget, I want to touch on a couple of different things. The first thing is I want to commend the committee and the district for a couple of areas that it's been supporting, and I hope that we can see that support continue. In particular, the arts department in general. I think there are so many good teachers and so many talented kids. They do amazing things. But I also want to point out that it's not just at the high school. That those opportunities begin at the elementary schools. It hasn't always been that way in Chelmsford. Art on a Cart is not in the distant past. It's important that we continue to provide the kind of support, both financial, but also the space and the personnel support, to build that pipeline into the high school where the kids are by any account remarkable. Go to any concert, go to the Congressional Art Show at the library. These kids are doing great work, and I hope that the committee will see fit to continue that support. Also, there's a minor line item, about $2,300 for Destination Imagination. I worry sometimes because it's a little bit of an orphan. It's not directly connected with any single school, but it's probably the biggest STEAM project that the district undertakes. The kids are given technological challenges and asked to come up with solutions and then present those solutions. And the presentations are wide-ranging, mostly performative. The kids work on this for months. The money that the district contributes unlocks hundreds of volunteer hours. The teams are run by parents. The coaches come from our town as well as the other towns that are competing. I think it's a fantastic investment when you look at the return on it. The bang for the buck is incredible, and I hope that continues. I think you're going to hear more from other people, certainly, about future needs, and I know that the district has started that process last year with a wish list attached to the budget, and that's something I'll come back to. But that's a very good start. A couple of things that I'd like to point out in particular: we're still down a couple of department coordinators. This is important, not just because there's a spot on the org chart for them, but because they're doing a lot of work in the schools on a daily basis. They're supporting the teachers. They're not the frontline people, but given the current evaluation scheme that the state is requiring us to submit, it's really difficult not to have those spots fully filled. And in particular, one of them is the foreign language coordinator spot. And I have to say, I hope there's a way to put a little bit more funding into the foreign languages as a whole. 10, 12 years ago, there was some discussion of adding languages, Chinese, German. Since then, we just lost Latin this year. We're down to just Spanish and French. I don't know I don't have a full-blown solution for you, but I just want to raise it as an area that I think needs a little bit of attention. And I think, again, having a coordinator there lets you do more planning, but also do more support of the teachers that you do have in there. If you have a mid-year vacancy, which has occurred in the last couple of years, you have somebody there to support the teacher who comes in, who may not know the ins and outs of the district, who can also, and somebody who can give young teachers feedback on what's working and what's not working in the classroom. I'd also like to talk a little bit about the format of the budget document. This is something that work had started on this when Dr. Lang came in, and I just want to make sure that it keeps rolling. One of the things I'd like to see included this year is an organization chart. That's the trouble with a lot of these things is that there's no good repository. It's very difficult to go back and look at the school budget or the town budget from 5 years ago, never mind 10. The more information we can put into the school budget document as a whole, the easier it is, I think, for people who come into the game late, right? I have documents going back to whenever they closed the Westlands because that's when I got involved, right? And so, but it's hard for other people who are just coming into the district now to kind of understand where we're coming from. So as we build this budget document, please keep in mind that it's not just for this year, it's not just for the people at town meeting, but it's for people who 5 years from now maybe want to look back and say, where did this start? Kind of along those lines, I'd also, this work has begun, but I would like to see the document contain not only the appropriated budget line items, but also the revolving funds, the grants, and the capital budget as well. I noticed that I think you're going to be talking a little bit later tonight about some of the goals, and I know that one of them is putting together a 10-year capital document. I think, once again, it's important to be able to find it a couple of years from now. There is a 10-year capital budget, and there has been one for 20 years probably. You just can't find it anywhere. So if the capital budget can be included in the school budget document, it makes it much easier to go back later and see where things, which holes have been fixed and which holes have remained for some time. The capital budget also is an example of forecasting, which is something that has not been done, as far as I know, up till now, really, in the budget document. I would like to see a little bit of forward-looking discussion as well. I think you can do that fairly easily with the capital budget. You can do it fairly easily with the enrollment projections. You can also do it, I think, with the wish list or the list of unmet needs. This is important because it allows people to see not only what did we do this year, but what remains to be done next year. And it helps guide the discussion as we go forward, and to remind people that a level service budget doesn't mean a full service budget. That's important. And then I'm going to close with one thing where I'm glad I'm on this side of the table, and that's the future infrastructure needs. We have a capital budget. It's designed to deal with large infrastructure projects. We also have a comprehensive facilities assessment, which completely blows away the existing capital budget. There's just no way to get there from here. We have a couple of things. I know we're resubmitting the MASBO grant, but let's be honest with ourselves and with the town. If you look at the towns that have already received the MASBO funding, we're not them. We don't look like them, and we're not going to look like them in the next couple of years. So while you never say die, and you do what you can, you push as hard as you can on that section of it, we have to have another plan as well, a plan B. Honestly, even if the resubmission works, we're not going to see that money until FY21. That's several years down the road. And if the plan turns out to be rebuilding the high school or replacing the high school, that still doesn't address some of the significant needs, especially at the middle school level. The pods are not going to last another 10 years at the middle school level. The science labs at the middle school, They've been on the list for replacement for longer than I've been involved with the district. We have to come up with a way to address some of those needs. And the trouble is, it's a real big number. And I don't think it's not really on anybody's radar yet. Or perhaps it's on their radar, but there's no way of talking about what we're gonna do 3, 4, 5 years from now. In part, this is where the forecasting becomes useful. It's easy to see, look, if we have, $500,000 in a revolving fund, we can put that towards a parking lot repair. But we can't use that to replace the pods at McCarthy, where it helps identify the needs. And I think at some point there has to be a town-wide discussion. It's beyond the capacity of just a school committee to raise the kind of money that needs to be raised. But I think, as we saw from the environmental fixes, the Board of Selectmen is not going to take the lead on it until they see the school committee kind of vocalize the need and define the scope of the problem. Same with the Finance Committee. I think they would be willing to pitch in and work on a large-scale project like that, but they're going to look for leadership to the school committee. So if there's a way to somehow put that either into this document or perhaps it needs to be a completely different document, I would love it if some of that could be done as well. All right. Thank you very much.
Can I just make a comment on something you spoke about, the history? I do a lot of research in my spare time, which is now very limited. But when I get a call from a parent wanting to know when something went into effect in the Chelmsford High School handbook, the first thing I do is go into the web archive. And I say, what was it in 2013? Well, to my surprise, our web archive has been locked down. You can't research anything past 2015. There's no history. I'm requesting that the lockdown be taken off, please. Bill Silver's name is there, Steve Normanton's name is there, and it's intentionally locked. And I'd like to see it unlocked. Thank you, Mike.
I mean, just to that, I have no idea exactly what you're talking about.
Well, if you do any research.
I could-
The web archive basically takes a picture, a snapshot, across the entire web of a page in time. And what they try to do is capture information so that if anyone's researching 2013 Chelmsford High School Handbook, they'll be able to see a copy.
How long have you known this has been locked out?
I just started doing research about 2 months ago, I should say. A few months ago. I was doing something on the Chelmsford High School Handbook because
Policies and stuff like that?
Yeah, no, the handbook.
Just the handbook
The
itself.
handbook's, yeah, and it has something called the end grade,
So you
which
just
is
found out it
recent.
was locked out yourself?
Yes, it's a recent change to have it locked down because I've used it extensively in years past. So I went to look for a prior handbook to figure out when this end grade went through, because I don't remember voting on it. And I tried to go to 2013. I was able to get 2015, but I couldn't get anything beyond that. So I'd like them to unlock it. The message is, you do not have access to this page. It has been locked, and at the bottom it has Mr. Silver's name and Mr. Normanton's name. And there's a lock on it.
Yeah, I guess the only thing I would say to that is if you come across these things, just let me know ahead of time. I'd be happy to look into them. I don't know why necessarily something would be, locked down or what's considered locked down. Sometimes I do know that, if a new version of a document goes out, you would want to have people be directed to the newest version of a document as opposed to the older document. There should be a way, if the document exists, to still be able to access it.
Right.
But it could be for some kind of a reason like that, where they're trying to just direct people to the most current document as opposed to an old document. But if you come across stuff like that, if you let me know,
Yeah,
I'm
pretty
always
much
happy
our
to
whole
look
history is
into it.
locked down from 2016 prior. Yeah, I know, makes my research tough.
Michael, just one thing, I may not see you again for a while, but Susan Case was anxious to coordinate more with our finance department, and the first step in that is that our two a cappella groups are going to work with, Julia, can't think of the last name, anyway. Is it Colgate? And Colgate's a cappella.
Siegel, yeah.
Yeah, Siegel, yeah.
Right.
Okay. Which is the first attempt, and the two of them are going to meet to look at other ways. It's not a matter of being unhappy with each other, but both programs are running stuff all the time.
Right.
And the more that they can tell each other, obviously it'd be better. So I thought that was a really good thing to be going with.
Yeah, that's, I know they tried to reach out to the Friends of Music as well last year when the Friends of Music were working on their cabaret, which didn't come off for other reasons.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think you're right. There are opportunities there. There's a connection actually to the Nor'easters as well.
Yes.
And so.
Yeah, we saw that one. That was good.
Yeah, and so, yeah, if we could do that, that would be a great.
It's also great, I think, that our kids are bringing these opportunities back to us, too. So, thank you, Michael.
All right, thank you.
All right, item 2 on the new business.
Oh, wait, you've got another.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm sorry.
I actually didn't intend to speak, but now I feel like I can't let this opportunity
Oh,
pass. So, Lori Coolis, 12 Orchard Lane, and I'm one of the nurses in the district. And just in regards to the budget, and hopefully, I'm hoping to see maybe the Parker nurse position, full-time Parker nurse position, make it to the final end of the budget for next year. Right now, we have a long-term sub there, and I just feel that it's so important that our nursing staff be full, and so I would love to see the Parker School have a full-time nurse, and that be in the budget. So I thought
Anything else? Thank you. All right. On item 2, Mr. Mario is supposed to come to see us tonight about the student handbook at the high school, and he was out ill today. So that item's going to be put off until the next meeting, which will take us to number 3, coordinated program review.
Thank you. Yes, this is a report, and I believe you may have received a report. This actually was posted to the website a while back, but the district underwent its coordinated program review last spring. Every 6 years, the school district goes through a coordinated program review where Mass Department of Ed will send in a team of educators to take a look at our ELL programming, our civil rights programming, or civil rights policies, and our special education programming. So I wanted to give you a couple of things. If you look on the second page of the, after the memo, there are actually, it's about 105 or 106 different areas where the district looks at us and gives us different assessments. And they try to find out if our existing programming is meeting needs, is in need of work, things along those lines. So the vast majority on the second page is just a quick snapshot. You'll see that the vast majority of the different areas or the elements that they looked at were actually currently being implemented in the district, which is good. Again, the second tier, they identified a number of different elements, about 20 or so, that are considered partially implemented and still have additional work to do. And then there were 2 different elements that they set out of the 100 that the district was not implementing, so we need to then put an action plan together to implement. So overall, I thought the coordinated program review went very well. I did provide for you a full copy of the report. And again, this report is posted on our district website, so staff and families and parents can take a look at the report itself. One of the documents that I'm also sharing with you at the very end of the 33-page report is kind of an internal tracking document, and I thank Linda for actually putting this together for us. But any of the findings that were either partially implemented or the 2 that were not implemented, this is the log that we're actually using as an internal document to track them. So you can see in the left column is the DESE criteria numbers, just so we can actually track it. The title, what the value was, so whether something was partially implemented or not implemented, the date that we're anticipated or expected to comply by, a copy of the finding from DESE, and then the last column is our action plan. So we then have to actually provide an action plan for each of these different items to tell the Department of Education how we're going to either fully implement or come into compliance with the various elements. And then on the far right-hand column, you can see that DESE has actually approved our finding, our recommended action to address that. This is a document, again, I just wanted to share with you. There's no action that's required of you this evening, but over the course of the next year or 2, as we actually fulfill all of these different action plans and report to Department of Ed for compliance purposes, we'll add columns to this to just kind of help with tracking. And periodically, maybe every 6 months or so, we'll provide the school committee with an updated list that just highlights these, 20 or so areas where we had some work that we had to do on. So again, it's just an internal tracking document, but wanted to share with you to let you know what our responses were, how they're being addressed by the DOE. And again, if you ever heard about the coordinated program review or different things that we're doing in the district as a result of the coordinated program review, wanted you to have that documentation.
So the objective is your rating should always be not partially implemented, but implemented.
Yeah, what you're striving for is implemented.
Okay.
Because that would mean you're implementing to the,
Standard.
the DOE's expectations.
Okay.
Some are very easy to, come into compliance with. Others require a little bit more, time and work. But I thought it was important for you to see, first, how we actually proposed coming into compliance with these documents. And then also just knowing that the, DOE agrees with us and has approved our recommendations.
Was there an area in here that's new? Or is it pretty
In
much?
the review, they look at different things every time. It's a 6-year review. There was nothing, I have to say, that really caught us off guard. One of the big issues, just kind of talking in global terms, one of the big issues that they identified, it's just something that we really haven't done in the past. As our population is changing and we have more second language speakers to the district, we really need to start translating a lot of our documents, our staff handbooks and student handbooks, into foreign languages, multiple languages, which we don't. So that's something that we're going to have to obviously work on. When it comes to programming, say within the realm of special education, one of the things we've been talking about is a therapeutic programming, behavioral programming at the elementary school level. So that was obviously included within this report, and that's an item that we're working on. One item that we're actually going to talk about at the next school committee meeting was one on here that actually the only one that the DOE hadn't approved because we didn't have a kind of a response yet for it that's going in now. But at the high school level, the DOE actually requires you to have as a course offering, physical education or something that's going to qualify as physical education all 4 years of high school. Right now, we only have the requirement currently of 2 years of phys ed, and then we added the health requirement for the junior year, the additional health course. So technically, we have 3 out of 4 years that qualify. The DOE is saying we actually need kids to take health and phys ed for 4 years in high school. So Steve was coming next Wednesday as well to talk about some recommended changes to the Chelmsford High School student handbook, more around course tracking and history. One of the things that we're going to be looking at is, like at the freshman level, we have the freshmen take health and phys ed their first year. So they're technically taking 2 courses in 1 year, and then they're only taking 1 course sophomore and 1 course junior. So splitting that up and having them only take 1 of those 2 options freshman year, and then doing 1 sophomore, 1 senior, 1 junior. So we're going to have to look to see, without adding a lot of additional programming, how we can move programming around to have it meet the regs. And actually, that's technically a law, that kids have to take the phys ed requirement for 4 years. So that's something that, we'll obviously report on. And again, Steve and some staff from the high school will be here next week to talk about that. But, those kind of things. So nothing overly that caught us off guard. I think all in all, again, when you're looking at 105 or 106 different criteria, and 85 or 86 of them we were already fully implementing, and only to be dealing with about 20, 22, 23 different elements, and some of them again are very small. It was really not significant findings. So we're happy with that. But this is a document you'll see on multiple occasions in the future, so just wanted to be able to share that with you. No response needed, but just so you can take a look at how we responded. Any questions on that? Okay. Next item on the agenda this evening is some discussion and work on the school committee goals for the year. So if you recall, I gave you a couple of different documents. The first document after the memo was a copy of our current goals, or our goals for last school year, just as a point of reference. Then after those, Dennis had actually proposed and had been working on some draft goals for the committee to consider, both district-wide goals and then also kind of professional practice goals. So those are listed there for you. Linda, again, I thank for kind of taking some of Dennis's work and some of the work of our former goals, and also some of my goal work that ties to the strategic plan for the current year that we're in, and kind of incorporating that all into one document. So it's the document that's entitled School Committee and Superintendent Goals for 2017-18. And as you read this document, when you say come to goal one, again, it's set up to have like 3 district-wide goals, and these kind of mirror the district plan. So it really would show how the school committee and the superintendent and our staff would be working in unison on these goals. The top goal would be a recommendation for the school committee to consider in black, and then in blue, right below it, would be what my goal is for the year, and again, kind of tying to that plan. So we walk through that for goals, 1, 2, and 3. And then goals 4, 5, and 6 would be kind of more professional practice goals of the school committee. These are, again, things that are kind of directly within the school committee's purview. One around meeting formats and agendas, another with communication with stakeholders, and then the third one on that would be the policy review that we're going to be doing with MASC. So I wanted to put all this information together in one kind of document for you. Again, thank Linda for helping compile the whole thing, and having us be able to have a discussion tonight. I don't know, Dennis, if you wanted to jump in on anything and just kind of see how people felt about, moving forward with some goals and actually being able to see how the school committee and the superintendent's goals would tie together.
And as Jay said, I looked at the school committee goals for the last couple of years, and they were good, but they were sort of general, and they're similar from year to year to year. So I thought since we had a new strategic plan that it would be good to maybe kind of take another look at it and try to make our goals kind of match up a little bit more with what this strategic plan was. So I kind of just went through and sort of brainstormed at first of, what kind of things could we as a school committee do to support the different points of the plan. And so that that first document kind of highlights some of the different. It kind of goes along well with what Mike was saying in terms of planning for the future too. Right? So we have a 3-year strategic plan, if I'm not mistaken. So these are things we can be working on in these particular areas over the next 3 years. Then what I try to do is take out and think about what could we do this year. Given the time constraints, we are halfway through the year. So whatever goals we pick for ourselves for this year have to be things that we need to be able to accomplish by the end of the academic year, which is June. So just thinking about, the first was supporting academic achievement in terms of programming and things like that. I knew that things were in the works in terms of trying to set up some cooperative situations with Middlesex and other local colleges and universities. So I thought that would be something that we could work on in terms of supporting it and looking at policies, looking at graduation requirements, et cetera, that would kind of go along with that. I know that social-emotional learning and all that's a big part of what we want to be looking at. There's a lot of pieces of that. If you look again at that initial document, there's a lot of different things we could look at. But I thought maybe just kind of getting an idea of where our priorities were as far as again, there's lots of things to do. What do we need to do first? What are the areas of most need at that point? And then in terms of the financial piece, again, what Mike mentioned with the capital plan and looking at that in relationship to the facilities assessment and what are we looking at doing long term, to make sure that not only are we putting in new plans for or submitting new plans for buildings, but what are we going to do with the buildings we have? So those are the ones that kind of go along with the strategic plan, and then the other ones are I guess for us, just to try to kind of maybe do things differently, improve communications, improve how we run our meetings, that type of thing. So, these are things I think we can do better. I mean, you may agree or disagree with that, but I think there are definitely things that we could do better as a group to be more efficient and to work together a little bit better. So that was kind of my thinking, putting it all together. And, I said, I just happened to pick out things that I thought we could do this year. There are lots of other things we can do that are related to the strategic plan and as a group, I think. So, that's where. I thank Linda for making them into SMART goals.
I'm assuming the blue is what's lesser than black.
Yeah.
Yeah, the blue is less than black. Yes.
and one of the things as one of the goals looking forward is starting this process earlier next year. We shouldn't be, coming up with goals in January that are going to end in June. I think
Right.
it's something we could be doing over the summer, in August, whatever, when times are slow, that we can really sit down and spend some time with this, and gives us a whole year to work on these things, so.
Well, I think the other nice opportunity this gives, even to that point, is, if we really are starting to look at things, not just on a one-year basis, but you're looking at things over like a 3-year period, there are certain deliverables you're gonna have during each of those different periods. It allows you to have, even if you look at like my first one, that's kind of the lighter, it's blue on my screen, but it's the lighter black on yours. The goal is pretty consistent for 3 years, but the different action items under it, the 4 bullets, change year to year as you receive progress on things. But I think it would show consistency and continuity in our approach to where kind of we're trying to bring the district. And, again, be responsive to having really the work that we're trying to do in the district align with the school committee and having us all be kind of working in unison together.
So the idea, try to get us all on the same page.
Yeah.
Work at the same thing, so.
Thank you, Dennis.
I don't know how to move from here, because well, your document and the last document are substantially different, right?
What's that?
Your document in the last.
No, actually,
document.
the last, this,
Similar, yeah.
this doc is, they just added Jay's
Yeah.
goals
So,
in.
yeah, I was saying, the new document.
Oh, yeah.
And like the old school committee goals.
Absolutely, absolutely,
Are
yeah.
totally different.
Yes, they're totally different. And again,
This is Dennis's, right?
Yeah, that's Dennis's.
Yeah.
And Linda helped get that document into like a
This.
smart goal looking document, this. So these two are similar, but the format is different than the old school committee goals.
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't want to jump in, like, I don't think people should feel pressured, if tonight you need more time to review this, we can put this on the agenda for next Tuesday. We're meeting again next week. I think it was just a stab at kind of putting everything together into one kind of cohesive document, but it's got to be something everyone feels comfortable with.
Yeah. And if there's something, that you think we could do instead, if there are other goals that within these areas that you think we would be better served doing this year, and then putting some of this, other things off till next year, whatever. I mean, there's a lot of things to do in all these areas. so
Right.
it's
One
not
thing
you
I'd
got a
like-
lot to choose from.
I'd like to see is every meeting on the calendar from the first day of school. Every school committee meeting is already on the calendar, and all we have to do is post the agenda. So the dates are there, parents can make their plans, see for the whole year how it looks.
Yeah, well, definitely, there's definitely things we can do, and those are those last professional,
Yeah.
goals, as us as a committee. These are things that we need to decide what we want to do, as a committee, how we want to, have our agendas and agenda packets presented, and how we're going to do public comment, and all of those type, what it's going to format of the meeting. Is it going to be the same all the time? We've talked about before, having a business meeting one time and having a less business-like meeting with more public input, and maybe having those presentations that we do. I mean, that's an option, but those are things I think we have to talk about and see what the merits of those things are, and then decide a way to go from there.
Right.
I'd feel much more comfortable if I could take the document home, review it for the course of the week, and then get some input early next week.
Yeah, I can put this right back on for next Tuesday night,
Okay.
and we can continue to talk about it, or, even offline. I mean, you can share ideas and things. If you have any ideas you want to email along, you could email them to colleagues and just have people have a chance to take a peek at them ahead of time.
Can I just say one thing?
Oh, yeah.
So, beyond the professional practice goals, because you're right, that's something like if you want to change your meeting, who's sitting where, those kind of things, that wouldn't directly affect what's happening in the schools. But if your larger goals, and I think that's what Dennis was looking to do not mirror what we're actually doing in the strategic plan and what's happening in the schools, then we're doing two different things. You're going this way, we're going that way. Because then the strategic plan informs the school improvement plans, and that improves the department goals, and then the teachers create their goals through those things. So everything is always connected to some type of district or department goal, so we all should just be in some, alignment that's happening
That's how I
there.
started out. I
And-
made a grid.
and I
There's
saw
a
it.
strategic plan, there's a school committee, and then there's the superintendent, we should all be kind of on the same page.
And then those extra ones, like if you want to hold more open sessions, those things that's easy to do as a group, because that's how you're just deciding how you want to work your meetings.
I think I would like all of us to think a bit about vision. Where are we going? Where are we focusing? I feel like the last few years we've been focusing on building. I think that we need to spend a little more time focusing on education.
Well, I think that's what the strategic plan's
Okay.
for, though. I mean,
That-
I really
that's-
do. That's why I
yeah,
think that's.
we need that vision.
Yeah,
And-
but that, right, and that's why I think that's there, and that's why I think we should be working towards those
Yeah.
goals.
And you can't just have one over the other, so they
Right.
have to kind of be.
I don't like to see something like Latin fall to the side. I think we need to think about how to keep something like that. What's the way to keep and focus on education?
Yeah, we gotta look at all the pieces, though, all the pieces, not just, we gotta look at the finances and everything else.
Can I just chime in on the whole Latin, because it's come up twice? When it comes to the Latin piece, we're not just leaving it with just Spanish and French. We are bringing in another language. We were just looking at how the programming went. So typically what we were finding numbers-wise is that students were taking Latin 1, it was dwindling a little bit in Latin 2, students may have picked up another one, and then when it became to Latin 3 and 4, the numbers are just
What do the numbers look like for Spanish and French? for the
Spanish
senior?
and French, they're full. I mean, some of them are bursting at the seams. So what we've worked with the department, we did a survey with them. I surveyed all the Merrimack Valley area schools that are typical to Chelmsford to see what they were offering and what's also sustainable and that there's teachers for. So one of the ideas is to bring in another language. So technically, we still have 3 languages because we're still adhering to the students that are in Latin, because we couldn't just drop a program for students that wanted to take 3 and 4 years of Latin. And then we're bringing in another foreign language. One of the other things that we're kicking around with is, and we're going to talk about piloting it, is a way to have students access not just Spanish and French and Latin and German or any other things, but any language they want to for several years through a hybrid model online, because we do have access to a lot of programming that we could do. So in speaking, we actually just met with the world language teachers the other day, Steve Murray and myself, and I think actually it was Liz Loisel who said, why can't we just pilot this in one of our other classes as almost like an elective to see how it goes? And we said that's a great idea. So next year, as we bring in another language, still keep the rest of our Latin programming for the end of the school year, French and Spanish. We're talking about a way to have access to any language that a student wants to study, long as they have the 2-year requirement for graduation. Let them learn whatever they want.
There's lots
So-
of online options.
Yeah, so
Lots
it's
of-
not, I feel kind of bad because I don't want the message out there that we don't have a world language coordinator, so now the programming's falling apart. It's just we're taking a look at it in a different lens to see what's a better option for students to have access, and then what's sustainable with that access. Does that make
We
sense?
still have Latin for the kids that have already been in Latin. We didn't drop Latin for the kids that were already in it. We're
Right.
gonna see them through high school. That's not gonna go away. We wouldn't just up and drop them. So we technically still have 3 languages for high school. We're just not enrolling new students in Latin because they just don't stay with the program once they get to years 3 and 4. We're gonna be recommending an additional language, a whole new language for next year, to always maintain minimum of 3 languages at high school.
I love it.
Unless they're going
not
on to
more.
med school or law school, where Latin is the basis of language. So,
You can still go to med school without taking
no,
Latin.
you
most
can, but
people
I'm
do.
saying it does benefit.
Absolutely,
So
but
that's a
it's
huge
not.
benefit.
So doesn't opportunities for German and Italian and some of the other languages benefits out there for the kids too? They're traveling all over the world right now, and.
I don't
think
argue in travel,
You know.
it does make you able to communicate better. But with respect to studying for those careers, Latin is the basis.
Well, and I know that Linda knows this, but I just want to, based on my experience, you not only have to look at the language, but what resources are available. It's fine for Cambridge to talk about Mandarin, but in Chelmsford, it might not be a good idea to, I mean, where are you going to get, they have the population to, in terms of instructors to support it. I mean, we have trouble, with Latin, we have trouble, at least we were.
French
getting-
and Spanish and
Yeah.
there's a lot, it's hard because they're very specialized and they have to have a
So it
certification.
sounds great, when some places, we should teach Mandarin
Yeah.
or, some of the Chinese dialect or whatever.
Right, and if you think about this online component piece too, that if it does take off and it is something that we can, fund and also sustain, because we need an instructor in there. This is not
Yeah.
just, hey, go off and go take a class and let us know how you do. That's not the purpose of schooling. they could pick up the Latin on the online component with someone facilitating it. So that's the piece that we're going to investigate while we still have a little bit of time, bringing in another language and making sure those students get through that program for 3 and 4, and then with our Spanish and French, and even offering different levels for students that may not have had access to world languages before they got to high school. So a level 1 course that they wouldn't necessarily have access to at the high school because we started a level 2, because we are assuming students had that language. So there's a lot of different options. We just have to do it slowly, and it takes a little bit of time, and to make sure it's sustainable, and we have instructors for it. That's the big thing.
I'd like to go back to the goals for a minute. I don't know where to go with this, to be blunt. For example, all this stuff about tier 1 and everything's great. I don't know what any of that means.
That's his responsibility.
That's my goal.
Well,
Our goals are the dark ones.
Yeah.
I know, but I like over here, you got specific things. I don't know what to do with these as opposed to this. You say they're a lot alike, maybe in the general statement, but I don't know.
Those are more
Action
like
steps.
action steps or action
Yes.
items that will be done as part of this.
But do we put those anywhere?
You can put them in a grid.
Okay.
We can do that for you.
I like
kind
that.
of take
Otherwise
that
we lose-
piece and.
Yeah, do
and-
that.
right.
Otherwise, we lose the idea. I mean, I would lose the idea if it's not here.
Yeah, I figured it was a working document, so it was something we
No,
can
but
work with
I
every
think
year.
it's great.
Yeah,
That's why. I don't want to lose them. I
Yeah.
think that they're good points.
Get on my computer, Al. I won't lose it.
No. Okay. All
We
right.
can do that if you
We-
like.
yeah,
Just
we could
format.
merge
We can
them
fool
into
around
a
the
grid.
format.
Yeah, whatever.
Like, if you look at, say, a blue goal of me,
Yeah.
the items actually relate to, and it's just it's a
Thank you
wobbly.
for coming.
The items just relate to the grid.
Yes.
So
Oh, you're
all the
staying.
different
Okay.
action steps
I
are
thought you
laid
were
out.
leaving.
No, she was
Yeah.
moving the bucket for the
Oh,
water.
I'm sorry.
All the different action items lay
jeez.
out. We could do something similar for you if you wanted to, just to have all those points.
Yeah, okay.
So,
All right.
want to work on that, and I'll put it back on for next Tuesday?
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay. Fifth item on the agenda, this is actually a trip that received prior approval. It came in over the break that that boys hockey team was invited to play in the Falmouth hockey tournament. So this, we approved over the break because we didn't have a meeting scheduled, but wanted to put it on the agenda to let you know that they did go on that particular trip. So it's really an after the fact, just acknowledgement that the team went on the trip.
Liaison reports, anything?
I went to Chelmsford High School last night, and I sat next to Steve Murray, so I might be sick tomorrow. And then I went to South Row. It was a little late because they started at the same time, and a parent had slid and hit her head on the floor, so an ambulance had to come and take her to the hospital prior to my arrival, so that was the excitement there. And they're trying to raise money or work out to build a kiln for the art program. And I don't think I'm not sure. I mean, it's an older building,
Yeah.
Center had a kiln, so it was possible. Then the code changed in 2015, so it doesn't look like it could happen, but maybe. They might have to go to the State House and finagle a deal. That's it.
Okay, I just have one quick thing. On the 18th, the Alumni Association's having a share night, which will provide as
Oh, yeah.
you may know, they're developing a mentor program where people can either talk to someone who's been to a school or wants to find out about a program or all those kinds of things. And they, because Heather Lindsted's been working hard, they have like 80 people signed up already.
Yeah.
And this sort of goes with that. I think they're going to split. It's going to be in the Learning Commons. And they're going to give people a chance to either talk with people about schools or about careers. And this is a new venture, but I think it's a great opportunity because we have people like Peter Reynolds, who got a lot of publicity recently in the Globe, I think, and so forth, are going to be there. And so it has tremendous, this will be the first time, we'll see how it goes, but I think it's it's a good undertaking, and certainly the kids and parents, it's, the parents are all invited for this
Yeah.
too.
She spoke last night at the CHS meeting and, talked about some of the parents who were there. Their children have been invited to participate as recent alums. So they can, connect with a student who might be going to the school where they are or graduated from. And it's a nice connection,
Yeah.
for recent and not so recent alums to connect with a student. And maybe they don't use their connection when they're a freshman or a sophomore, but their junior year, they're like, wow, I remember someone who went to Providence College, and then they shoot them an email, and it could work out well. It sounds very exciting.
And she's also laying the groundwork for Giving Day in March. I don't have the exact day here with me, but the idea of that, a lot of colleges are running these programs now where alumni are encouraged over one day to make donations to support programs. And what I think that it's going to go through, Jay and I met with her and suggested, because she wanted to give a percentage of the income from that to programs that exist now, so that people who have kids in the district now would see the benefit, of giving money now. And what we suggested is that they establish a foundation, and I think what's being worked on is a foundation that would give grants to after-school activities in the general sense. So she's working hard and doing some good things, and the SHARE program, a project which is the mentor program, Dennis Hunt is keying, and it's coming along really well. They're taking it very seriously. One of the things that came up at the last meeting is to have training about meeting with students, and like in Rotary now, we have to take a test and go through this curriculum and everything else to be with, because of those of us that work with students. And it's not a bad thing to remind people about in the district either, because everybody's so sensitive to these things now. So I just wanted to bring up those two things. So watch for, on the 18th, the program is in the Career Center, and it's both parents and kids, careers and college opportunities and so forth. And then in March, you'll be getting a lot of information on the Giving Day. I'm sorry.
No, the only reminder I had for you is Monday is a holiday, Martin Luther King Day, so there's no school and we're closed. But we do have our next school committee meeting on Tuesday night. So next Tuesday, the 16th, is our next meeting.
Couple questions before,
yeah.
requests. In terms of the new calendar for the next year, can we get that up on the website? I don't know if it's been updated yet, because I know
Yes.
that was an issue last week. Yeah.
I did hear about that. I'm just waiting at this point. I have been in contact with Rabbi Perry, just to check a couple of the religious holidays, because page 2 kind of lists the different dates, and I just want to make sure coming out of the gates we have the right dates listed. So as soon as I hear back, which should be this week, I'll get it up to the website, and I'll actually send an email to the parents with the information.
The other thing, in terms of, I guess it kind of goes along with the goals, in terms of the agenda packet, is it possible to get it a day or two ahead of the meeting? Like, I know today we got it at noon.
Right.
And I work, and Sal works, and so, sometimes I'm coming home at 5, so you don't have a chance to read the goals and see what's going to, before you get to the meeting. Can we get it on a Monday, or we can get it on a Sunday, just so we have a few days?
In the old
Especially-
days, Dennis, it was delivered to our homes on Fridays by a police officer. Wow.
Wow.
Yep. Every Friday, an officer would
Yeah.
knock on your door. And
We don't have to do that, as long as, but I'm
Most of
just,
the
especially as we
time.
get into budget stuff, and
It
like
might
to have a
scare
chance to
some
look
of
at
us.
stuff. away, so.
No, and I accept that, and I will strive to get those on over the weekend for you, just so that they're up by Monday, to give you at least a couple days' notice.
And then one last thing on the budget, do we have a budget subcommittee or finance subcommittee that, as part of the school committee? I mean,
There is a finance subcommittee, and we actually didn't meet at the end of the first quarter. Usually they would just meet quarterly to review the financial statements. We didn't. The committee has just been receiving the reports as a whole committee, talking about them. But there is a subcommittee that can meet if.
I'm just thinking as we get into the budget, if there's a group that can look at things and prioritize things before we get to these meetings, so that we, come in informed.
Yeah, I'll email just a reminder. I'll look and just see again who the members are, and I can just let you know.
We do. All right, there you go.
Is this Ellen, Barbara?
It used to be us, I don't know if it
Yeah,
changed.
I don't remember.
Okay,
All right,
I'll verify for you.
And then there's someone from FinCom who's,
okay, yeah.
Well, they definitely come and meet with us before we go to the FinCom meeting, which is usually like the end of February, March.
Have we heard from the custodians?
Yeah, I'm gonna talk to you after the meeting. I've got a couple dates to run by.
Oh, I forgot this. You're all invited to go to the Valley Collaborative Stakeholders Meeting on Thursday, January 18th at 10 a.m. at 25 Linnell Circle in Billerica. And the purpose of the forum is for all stakeholders to gain a deeper understanding of the Valley Collaborative operations, and they'd be pleased to have any or all of you go. So I'll just go over the time again, so if you want, I know it's hard for some of you, but Thursday, the 18th, 10 o'clock at 25 Linnell Circle, Ninnell.
We got a copy of that in the office as well. I'll ask Debbie just to email it to you, just so you have a copy of the invitation with the dates and everything.
That's the same date as that,
Share program.
yeah.
The night- that night.
The committees, the school committees that John was involved with.
I don't know about that.
Didn't you get, I got a thing that John and one of the school committee people from Drake were gonna have this meeting on the 18th,
I never heard anything about it.
or maybe it died.
Yeah.
Because he didn't bring it up. At one point, he had asked to bring it up, and it didn't happen. None of you got anything on that?
No.
Well, maybe it died. The idea was to get regional school committees together to discuss things. So,
Sounds like a good idea, but
well, maybe.
I thought that was on a, I don't know if it's going forward, but I thought that was on a Saturday.
I don't know, I don't have it
Yeah.
here.
I have no
Maybe
information
it's
on
not, but
whether
anyway,
it's-
I thought it was around
it's
that
happening
time.
or not.
All right, it might be a different date, but I'm surprised. I thought it went out. Maybe it was on Facebook or something.
I don't know.
All right, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, everybody.